So Brianna Noll is a PhD candidate in the program for writers at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and she is a poetry editor of The Account, a journal of poetry, prose, and thought. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the Kenyon Review Online, Cream City Review, Salt Hill, Hayden's Ferry Review, the Missouri Review, and elsewhere. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. I'm going to start by reading two poems from the anthology. The first one is by Khadija Queen, and it's entitled, Mostly to Uncover the Reality of My Soothing Brand of Sickness. I called a dangerous man my husband, and something inside me loved it. Loved the way each day he killed me a little more, killed himself a little more. There were ways of believing everything he said. Sometimes it meant folding my thoughts into tight squares with sharp edges that nicked my tongue as I held them underneath. Sometimes it meant hiding parts of myself in pissy alleyways and abandoned parking lots where they got slept on and rained on, pushed around in shopping carts, or made a doorway on some tired body's flimsy house, so that I ended up a vagina with half a heart and no deep breaths. He never wanted or missed me, but he wanted to. Brutal attachment burning the inside of me like an etching, toxic and harsh in its carefully planned beauty. I almost believed I could take it. One day I thought I couldn't fight anymore, and then a sudden shift. I hustled a latticework of craving between blows. I unlocked my chorus of archetypal women from their chains. They rubbed their raw wrists with aloe and set to work. And the second one is by Meg Day, and the title is Teenage Lesbian Couple Found in Texas Park with Gunshot Wounds to the Head, Portland, Texas, June 24th, 2012. It's always the girls, we girls, who mistake our heartbeats for hammers, suffer their pounding when your kindness insists it requires no exchange, and hush their racket when a few rounds with Captain or Jack change your mind, training us like dogs to flinch every time you raise a hand. It's always the girls, we girls, who wake up with more Adam in our step than Eve, who weave back and forth with intention, or wear our hair and lashes long for anyone that is not you, who try pleases, try tears, try Jesus, but still pop up in pairs along Colonial Parkway and in Medford. Our bonds made literal and eternal in truck stop restrooms and along the Appalachian Trail. And it's always the girls, we girls, who assume we'll outlast your barbed wire boundaries our bodies hurdle on the daily, convinced our steel jaws will be found intact when authorities or archaeologists unearth each grave you chose for burying your rage alongside our bodies, still intertwined. Now I have a couple of my own for you. This one is called An Army of Ghosts. From the first, we tried to forget the debts we owed to honor. We'd been called forth into the horizon, drowned in its light, and reemerged more weightless than the grassy herbs we steeped for tea. So rid of mass, we were able to move stealthily, and not since Paris have we remembered what it was like to have a body pressing into space, resisting the wind, a body we could play like a flute alive. When we were mist, we could seep ourselves into overhangs and secluded corners, spy and retain, spy and reconnoiter, spy and steal ourselves back into the falling dew point. It was our job to listen without ears, to ascertain the nature of truth. We began to blink like cherry blossom petals at midnight, bright against blue-black branches in the blue-black night. It was inevitable we'd teach ourselves Morse code. But when we started to become Morse code, it was said we'd soon be decommissioned. But we were happy to think we could resign ourselves at last to quiet shadows. For so long, we'd been like specters. We were ready to rid ourselves of the figurative. This one's called With the Flag, We Stake Our Claim. It began as a uniform making session, but quickly became a flag making session when we realized we could not stitch pleats or pockets. We weren't particularly skilled seamstresses, and we weren't particularly brave, but we were fervent supporters of the New World. The flags were piling up, and I began whistling hunting songs, mistaking a jug of water for a crown of silver icicles or antlers. I looked through the walls and noticed the absence of birds in the world, and the sky an unprimed lapis canvas. We used to call it ultramarine, but now it's just lapis because we're trying to be more truthful. Lapis because it's made from the stone, and because it's not more than the sea. The sea made extreme or made radical, though that was our reason for choosing it for our colors. We imagined a sea rising and swallowing the troubles, and leaving behind like a giver, a world of plenty, the plants and animals of our dreams. You wouldn't understand our desire for a few shaggy ponies unless you had hair yourself. We're establishing an economy of pleasure. Why settle for a roan if you want to groom and sleeken a pony's hair as you would your own? The flags are lapis. Should we learn to sew, the uniforms will be lapis. When we die, and when our animals die, our coffins will be draped in lapis, scented with burial myrrh. Too much power to wear in our buttonholes. A grand claim, the most beautiful wisteria tree in the world. But hell if I don't look at it and think, no, nothing can be so lovely. Its garlands tear the light into ribbons, and we stand jailed. If the wisteria could read this, it would cover its blushing face. The perfumer recreates its scent by mixing bashfulness with light and linalool. It is a scent we wear into battle, a scent to rend the enemy's resolve. Its power is no secret. We do not bury our dead beneath wisteria for fear they will waken with the blossoms in spring. The perfumer's illusion alone is potent enough to conjure peace. Maybe two? Oh, all right. In the gown I wear to the uprising. We all made our clothes and mail for the occasion. Some melted down their own cutlery for a helm or gauntlet or gorget, melted their last coins, and pulled them, molten, taut, to lace into links for hauberks. But I made myself a gown, every thread unraveled from the cape of a fallen king, a cloth my family had been weaving since the beginning. I could fit a crossbow in my bustle, throwing stars in the balconette, but I do not. I don't wear armor because this should be peaceful. Anything gotten by violence is not, as they say, worth getting. There's a politic in these clothes, but the clothes are not enough. It's what we do in them. And what we do is make, and wager, and make. It is in our blood to make, not to make bleed. There are two more. The Pinkertons turns us against each other. So when they called us Sphinx, we ran. They say in Texas, bluebonnets bloom and wilt so quickly, people run through acres of fire ant colonies just to touch the petals, hoping to leave the imprint of their fingers as on goldenrod paper. The venom seeds. There's fear in this kind of thinking, of a life insignificant or plebeian. But our fear is different. We know how little our hands are worth, and the Pinkertons have made goons of us all. We can't help but leave traces of ourselves everywhere, a constant betrayal. But know that we aren't turncloaks, not intentionally. Just to speak is to inform, and this will be the end of us. So when we run, we leave our shoes behind. There's always a siren in the distance, wailing some kind of loss. No one wails for us. All we have left is our surroundings, so we take note. Bats fly between the branches of tamarind trees, their wings translucent as screens. If it were evening, they'd make perfect renegades. And this last one is called Imposition. The paper lantern falls in love with the sky it's wrapped in, a changeable embrace. The paper lantern knows it's held up by a hook on a line, but somehow the sky keeps it from tearing, despite rainstorms and the threat of typhoon. The paper lantern does not know its name in any language. All it knows is light and hook and sky. This is a love that needs no words. This is a love that needs only physics, the illusion of being void by molecules. As we watch, we are possessed by our need to say what we see, to say what we feel, watching all the time our breath as though we could be dragons, as though we could set this all aflame and be done with it.